Hello, welcome to another edition of Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in Brevard, North Carolina. And I'm filming at my house today. We're doing a series on crochet and granny squares for our summer make-along in 2023. I had a request for how to do a standing double crochet. Now this is where instead of like a lot of crochet patterns will just tell you to chain three. One of my adages when I'm teaching crochets, you need to go up to go over. So to get your height for a row, often a pattern, especially for a beginner, will tell you to just chain a certain height so you can start going around your granny square. And that's how we made our granny square videos that I've been making so far. Sometimes a pattern will call for what's called a standing double crochet. A chain three can count as a post, but it doesn't look as twisty or as pretty as the other double crochets. And sometimes this won't matter because there's so much other stuff going on. And sometimes when it's at the edge of a pattern, a standing double crochet is a way to make it look all twisty and pretty without having the chains. So because a chain can look a little different than a double crochet, no matter what you do. So there are different ways to do this. I will show you the way I do it, which involves making your loop on the hook longer and having to hang on to it. So this is the way I have learned and the version I like to use if a pattern says a standing double crochet. So let's get to it. All right, so I am using one of my granny squares to show you this. And instead of changing colors, it's a little more tricky if you're starting with a new color. I am just going to show you with a color that's already attached. And I will slip over to the hole here. So I'm in the hole. And the way I've been showing you all so far to have the right height is to chain three. And that counts as your first double crochet. And then put in two more. If the yarn will behave, and that's our first unit of this. But you might be able to see how this chain and these doubles have twists and this one doesn't. It'll blend in, like here's the one underneath with my three chains and my two doubles. But if you want them all to look twisty and pretty, especially if it's on the outside edge, then we need to do something different. So a standing double crochet, the way I have learned how to do it is you're going to pull your loop here about as high as your double crochets might end up being. And here's the tricky part. Instead of yarning over like this, see how that would make a big, huge, crazy thing? We're going to duck under this loop to make it our yarn over. So it's almost like instead of putting our yarn over, we're going to take the loop over. So I'm keeping a finger right here so I can pull that loop over. If I didn't have the finger there and I went to loop over, it wouldn't work. I'd end up with lots of twists, but we wouldn't end up with a yarn over that includes our hook, our loop here to make it look natural. Like, let me show you what would happen if I just said, well, let me pull it tall and do this, and that will just be fine. If I used a normal yarn over, we're going to have a really big, look at that. That guy, that looks weird. That's going to look very weird. We got our twist here, but we have this extra thing out here. So let me pull that out. And let's go back to if we just slipped into the hole. We're going to pull the loop higher. It's about 2 to 3 times the height it was when I was down at the bottom. I'm going to keep my finger. I'm going to put a finger. So if you're holding on top, the first finger works really well. If you hold like a pencil, so holding on top is like holding like a knife. If you hold like a pencil, you could hold it with your middle finger. So you can duck under to give you a yarn over. Let me show you that one more time. I've pulled my loop big. See, that does twist if I just let it go. So I've got a finger on here. I'm gonna duck under with my hook. The other way to do it is to think about you could bring the whole thing over your hook, whichever makes more sense to your brain. But I'm keeping my finger on the top of the loop so it doesn't go flying. Now I'm going to treat this like a double crochet. I'm going to go into the hole, yarn over, and pull up a loop. This is double thick, but it still counts as one strand. I'm going to yarn over and go under both of those. And if you notice, I have not let go with this finger. I am still hanging on to that top loop. I'm actually not going to let go of that top loop until I pull through, because even that top one's going to feel a little weird. But take a look. That looks all kinds of twisty, just like a regular double crochet. So if I go in and I kind of keep fingers here anyway, most of the time. If I do 2 more doubles, here's what it looks like if I did a standing double crochet. Now, when you come back to it and it wants you to slip stitch, you kind of have to, it might be a little loose up at the top here because it's really hard to gauge exactly how tall to pull that loop. So you might end up with some extra stuff there. But this is where I would slip stitch when I come back around. I've got 1, 2, 3. I would slip stitch right there. Let me show you that a couple more times. Here's that loop. If we were starting from scratch, just locked into this spot, let me try it holding it like a pencil. Again, we want to pull up about 2 to 3 times the height of what it is if it's down here. Pull up. Then we either want to duck the hook under, or you can think about it as taking the whole loop while you're holding. Either way, you need to hold the top of the loop where it is. You still have flexibility to move this around if you're just putting a finger. When I'm holding it like a pencil, I do it with my middle finger. We can pull the whole loop over. I'm not going to let go of that until I'm done with the stitch, basically, though. I'm going to go in, grab a yarn over and pull it up. I'm going to go yarn over and go under what are 2 loops. It might feel like 3, but it's the loop you pulled up and the loop over, we could call it. I still haven't let go of this top one, so it stays together. And I'm going to yarn over and go through. That's when I let go of it, is when I'm pulling through both of those. I might finally let go of that loop. Let me show it to you 2 more times. Once holding the hook like a knife, I'm going to pull up to 2 or 3 times the height, keeping my first finger on here, and I'm going to bring the whole loop over my hook. The other way to think about it is to bring the hook. That's, for some people, this makes more sense. I'm still holding on to this. I'm ducking my hook under. Either way, I'm going to end up with the loop wrapped over my hook. I'm holding the top in place right there. Go in, yarn over and pull up a loop. I'm still holding on to the top of the loop. Yarn over and go under what I pulled up from the center and what I brought over my hook in the beginning. I still have 2 more. I'm still holding on to this. Yarn over. Now I've let go so I can pull through. Let's show you one more time, holding this like a pencil. I'm going to pull up, and I'm either going to, like, my middle finger is holding the back of this loop so it doesn't pivot, because if I brought this over and I wasn't holding it, that just twists. That doesn't do anything for me to help me make this stitch. Like, I have to pinch right there with my finger so that the top of this doesn't move, so I can bring the whole loop over. Or if it helps, I'm ducking my hook under. Whichever one makes more sense to your brain, give that a shot. Now that's like the yarn over of a double crochet. Now I go into the spot I need to yarn over and pull up a loop. Still holding on back here. I haven't let go. Yarn, I can slide, but I haven't let go. Yarn over and go under the loop I pulled up and the loop I took over my hook. And then I yarn over. Now I can let go of that top because I'm pulling everything through. But we end up with a twisty. It might have a looser top to it, but we end up with a twisty that looks just like if I went and did another double crochet next to it. So this is, let me do one more. This is what my beginning 3 look like with a standing double crochet. And underneath it, this is what my beginning 3 looked like. There's my chain. I just chained up 3 and did 2 more. This will look more uniform. It'll be harder to tell where your row started, potentially, but in the grand scheme of granny squares, you may not have to do that unless you really want to. But the edge of a shawl or something, when it asks for a standing double crochet, it can make the edge look prettier. Anytime a pattern says to do a standing double crochet, if this is not working for you, you can always chain 2 or 3. Thanks for joining us for a really quick video on how to do a standing double crochet instead of a chain 3 to give you your height. Next week, I hope to be doing videos on how to join granny squares together. There are so many different ways to do that. So I might make several videos. I haven't really figured that one out yet. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here, but you know, if you've enjoyed this and you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing to the channel. We have wonderful numbers lately. It's been really fantastic. Comment, like, all those good things. If you'd like to monetarily support the work we're doing here, it's not necessary, but it's always appreciated. There are memberships here. You can give a super thanks, which is kind of like giving a tip, or you can go to patreon.com/sundragon and subscribe over there. Patreon gives you swag after 3 months, which I think is pretty cool. So anyway, we really appreciate the whole community joining us in whatever way you can. And as I always like to say, may your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.